Hello traders, and welcome back to another market update. My name is Nick, and in today's video, as per usual, we're going to be taking a look at the currency market, looking at some technical analysis, as well as some potential trade setups and interesting zones of support and resistance that may come in handy. So let's go ahead and jump right into the video. Today we're taking a look at EURUSD for starters, and what you can see here is this pair has actually been moving to the upside. Now, if we back up quickly on euro dollar, you can see that the overall market has been very bearish for some time. Now, more recently, however, we've seen some interesting stuff happening. You can see if we draw in this trend line that we've been talking about, in case you haven't seen some of our previous market updates, we've been talking about the fact that, okay, price has been channeling to the downside. We've seen a nice sell trend in control. However, recently we did break that structure and we are now seeing a nice push to the upside. Now, I wanted to bring this up on the 4-hour chart today though, so that we could actually draw in a new trend line that we're starting to see form on EURUSD. If we draw this along the way, you can see this is an interesting zone potentially of support as price does pull back here. If I pull up my pen, essentially what we have here is EURUSD is trending to the upside and has broken through some structural levels of resistance. You can see that right here, we broke through the downward trend line that we were seeing, and now we're starting to see some bullish support rallying off of this new trend line that we're seeing forming. So this is something for the time being that I'm watching closely on EURUSD. If price decides to pull back to this trend line, this would be an area of potential value, in my opinion, where you could see a bounce on the euro dollar. From there, you have also this level of resistance or support. Sorry, let's see if we just make this. You can see right around this area here. That level also acting as potential support now that price has broken through and rejected it as a level of resistance, right? So resistance was here previously, but we actually broke through, and now on a potential retest, that same level of what was supply could potentially become demand now. Just some things to think about there on EURUSD going into this week. You can check also GBPUSD looking kind of interesting as well. We're seeing a really bullish push overall on GBPUSD. However, we're starting to see price roll over a little bit here. We're looking like we may have formed a recent structure top. In fact, this is the first time we've seen actually a red candle close that wasn't kind of a very weak bearish candle. We're actually seeing the first strongly bearish candle, which could lead to a further pullback. In my opinion, it's probably due for one on GBPUSD, as price is looking very stretched to the upside overall. Now, where could we see price head back to? That's really what everyone wants to know. I have some levels that I think might be interesting to watch, including this 50% level and the 61.8% level. If price decides to fall further on the pound, we could see price heading back all the way down to the 50% or even the 61.8, both of which I think are interesting levels to watch and might be a good cause for a potential bounce zone, right? Looking left, we also have this area here, right? Which to me looks very interesting as a potential level of support. So moving forward, let's take a look at USDJPY, and you can see that this price action has been bullish in the last couple of weeks. However, we're at a standstill, and what I'm gonna talk about here is that we do have a level of resistance along the top here. You can see this kind of general area here where sellers have been in control for the most part for the last several months. As prices come into this, historically, we've seen sellers step in and push price off of the highs to kind of gain seller strength once more. But now as we're coming into it, the question will be, will this hold as a level again? And in my opinion, it's more likely that we see some more bearish continuation rather than a jump through this level, although it could happen, right? There's no such thing as perfect technical analysis, and our job is just to make educated guesses and probability-based kind of trades. So with dollar yen, this level of resistance is going to be interesting to watch going forward. If we do break through, then of course that would be wrong, but I think my initial statement or my initial idea here is that we might see further sell-off on dollar yen from here along the top of this heavily resistance held zone. Let's go ahead and move on. We'll take a look at Brent Crude here, and you can see for the most part Brent Crude kind of crawling around. We're not really moving that much on this this pair here. You can see overall, we do have this trend line that may have been broken, right? We broke through this trend line. We retested that area and found temporary resistance. But for the most part, very low volatility recently here on Brent Crude, not seeing a ton of action going on. But for the most part, we have this trend line. We also have potentially this trend line as well, which is now being formed. Just some levels to look out for on the 4-hour chart. Let's see WTI crude if it has anything interesting. We have a similar trend line here along the tops there, and you also have a structure along the bottom. this might actually be a really interesting setup. Now that I'm looking at it, you can see that we kind of have a wedge formation. If you know a wedge formation, essentially we're seeing price get tighter and tighter here along a upper and lower trend line, which often leads to a breakout one way or another. So if you're looking at WTI crude and you're looking to trade this, one idea that you could potentially try is if price breaks through the top, we see a pullback, we could see a continuation after retesting. Same thing on the bottom. I would be waiting personally to see some sort of a breakout of structure here of the kind of wedge formation that we're seeing. So if we break to the top and we get a pullback, that might be a good opportunity to look for a long, and same thing on the short side, looking for kind of a calculated entry there. Gold is going to be our next one here, and you can see if we're taking a look at gold on the daily chart, we do have this downtrend kind of still holding for the time being. Not too much movement here overall on gold, but we do kind of see the formation of a downward trend or a downward channel for the time being. We'll see if that can hold and if we're going to break through and head back up, or if this is going to continue into a bigger downtrend. Both things I can see happening. So from a technical perspective, I think it's important to look for opportunities that give you a good probability of success. For example, trying to sell into this trend line might be a decent idea if you can combine it with some other factors such as candlestick patterns and other technical reasons, or even fundamental reasons to help aid your trade there. So let's go ahead and take a look at dollar Canadian. Dollar Canadian selling off quite a bit and really not seeing much of a bounce back yet. You can see that this level here was actually a level of support, or at least it was potentially going to be a support level, but we actually broke right through that level. If price decides to retrace to this level, I think you might have some opportunity to see sell pressure resistance in that area. Let's go ahead and move on to USD CHF, and dollar Swiss is getting a bounce back. You can see if we draw this fib here as well, we are coming into contact right now with a 38.2% level retracement. I personally think that the next one to look at, though, is to potentially look at this 50% level retracement because of the fact that we have a nice little structure here. I guess you could make the argument that the 31.8 is close, but I would say that just to be on the more cautious side, the 50% level retracement combined with this level looks like an interesting setup to me. Looks like a potential sell-off zone and where sellers may be hanging out. Let's take a look at GBPJPY. GBPJPY overall kind of looking like GBPUSD, where we're seeing our first red candle here that's actually shown some strength to the downside, right? And so what that means is that, well, buyers have been pushing this market nonstop to the upside, but finally sellers have enough strength to at least have a say in the matter. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to completely, push this thing to the downside, but what it does mean is that for the most part, price is seeing some hesitation, and there could be some opportunities to see some downside. One thing I'll point out, it's very similar to how we were looking at GBPUSD. We do have a similar kind of structure down here, which I think might be interesting going forward if we can see some sort of a pullback to that area, especially that 50% level right there. That is just my kind of generic thoughts there on GBPJPY. For the most part, you have some fibs in line here, you have a potential top up here, and you have some support zone, which was a previous level resistance. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I do hope you got something out of the video, and we'll catch you next time.